Brenner Mills, Minnesota Vikings. Just want to win one before I die.
I'm Riley Mills, and I didn't go to college. Bear down, baby.
Lane Cooner, the conductor of the Baker train.
What is up, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Wide Eye Sports Podcast. Today we got our post-Week 10 power rankings coming at you live. But before we get into that, take a second, like, subscribe. Just do it. Just do it for us. We need it. We love you for it. Thank you for doing it. All right, you guys ready to see the top 10? We're just going to jump right in. So how we do this is we all get votes. We all do a top 10. I do the average of each team within the top 10 for the three of us, and then I even it out. First place is worth 10 points, last place is worth 1 point, and then I just divide by 3. So super easy. Tiebreakers or points scored, stuff like that. We actually didn't have any tiebreakers this week. It was just everything was in order. There were no ties. So let me get that pulled up for us. All right, add to stage here. All right, so here we go. We're going to pull it up this way. Hold on. Give me 1 second here. Oops. There we go. All right. So, bubble team, we got the Green Bay Packers, and right above them, we have the Los Angeles Chargers at 10. I know that somebody in this podcast is going to have a little bit of an issue with this right out the gate. Spoon, would you care to divulge a little bit?
I mean, just flip them. The Chargers are my bubble team, and the Packers are my 10.
Yeah.
So
just flipped.
Yeah, just flip them. That's it. My reasoning wise, because they're both. I mean, they're both 6-3, right? No, one's 6-4.
I think the Packers are 6-4. I can double check here in just a second.
Actually, I think they're both 6-3.
The Packers are 6-3, and the Chargers are 6-3. So both teams are 6-3.
The Packers wins just look better to me than the Chargers wins do so far.
I mean, I can't get behind it. Every team the Packers have beat that's like an impressive team have been extremely injured or really bad. Like it's just
but like after looking into it too, like the Packers were up decent against the Jags, which is a team that your Vikings just struggled with, and then the Packers put in their backup QB and still were able to pull out a win there. So I mean,
you say struggled. I say got robbed, but hey, we should have won that game by a lot. I mean,
it was a little bit of a struggle.
And
realistically, I think Green Bay could possibly be a top 8 team if Jordan Love would just stay healthy, but he's not. So that's why they're still getting wins. So it's like it's hard to discredit them there.
Yeah, it's hard to discredit them because they are getting wins. I just feel like I know you had said we had talked about it a little bit, and you said that Green Bay would be favored on a neutral site. I think it'd just be a pick 'em.
So.
I think it'd be a pick 'em. With Jordan Love healthy, it'd be a pick 'em. If it's not Jordan Love, then it's Chargers -5.5 all day. But I'm assuming Jordan Love is healthy in that instance, not healthy. But all right, we're going to move on to the number 9 team on the list, the Houston Texans. They drop a little bit for me. I know they dropped a little bit for Riley, and they dropped a lot of bit for Spoon. I was very impressed by the way the Texans bounced back against a really good Detroit team, had them on the ropes, did blow a lead late. So, I can't move them up any, but I definitely feel like even with all their injuries, they've been a very bad team of late, but they're still able to compete with the top tier opponents. And because of that, I kept them in my top 10. So that's why I had them in there. Right?
I agree with most of what you said. I mean, they lost close to the 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah.
I mean, you really can't hold too much against that. I mean, the Lions are a good team, and they played them close.
Yeah. Spoon?
So I actually made a mistake. I actually had the Texans at 10, if I believe, right? And I had the Packers at 9, and the Chargers were my bubble team. I mean, I didn't tell you that, but the Chargers were my bubble team. The Texans at 9, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm looking their win against the Lions. It doesn't look like whenever I see
game
that
against Lions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, their game against the Lions. Whenever I see that, I'm like, okay, like, did the Texans actually play good, or did the Lions just have a off game? And it's not really that the Texans played well. I mean, how are you supposed to? I've never seen a win from a team where their quarterback throws 5 interceptions.
Yeah, that's
at
wild.
all. I think the Lions just played like absolute dog shit, which is the worst we've seen them play in a while. Their defense picked it up on their end, which, I mean, obviously they needed that. But I don't look at it as a good Texans loss. I look at it as a bad Lions win, in my opinion, which is why I think the Texans are just barely in the top 10. But if they lose another one, they're definitely out for me.
Yeah, if they lose another one, they're out for me too, for sure. They're barely in my top 10.
Yeah.
All right, so the number 8, Riley, you got anything to add before we move on?
I mean, it really depends on what their next loss looks like. I mean, if they have another game like the Lions where they lose by a field goal to a really good team, I don't think you could drop them out of the top 10.
Well,
they play the Cowboys next week, so I'm gonna guess they're gonna win that.
They play at Dallas.
Yeah.
At Dallas, home against Tennessee, at Jacksonville is their next 3 games. So if they don't go, they should probably go 3-0 in that stretch. But they're injured, especially on offense, so I could see them losing to a Cowboys roster that's healthy on defense for the first time in a while. So not crazy to me, but I definitely think that they'll win, but they could lose. But the other 2 games, they should win by a mile. All right. Number 8 team on the list, the Washington Commanders. They fall a little bit for me for obvious reasons. They lost. You can't move up if you take an L. I feel like it was exactly what we thought this Washington team is, an elite offense with a terrible defense, and it showed. And Pittsburgh was the same thing, just the opposite. An elite defense with a bad offense, but the only difference is their offense played good, and they played really good against a bad defense. And for the offense on the Commanders, they played good against a good defense, but it just wasn't enough in the end, and so they take a little slide.
Yeah.
Spoon?
No, I agree with everything you said. I mean, it was a close game between them and Pittsburgh. I think they put up more points than I would have expected against such a good defense. But at the end of the day, they lost close.
Yep. Spoon?
So I saw a post the other day, and it was talking about how the Washington Commanders are frauds. Every time they play a team that's over 500, they lose. I'm not there. I mean, obviously, we've had them teetering around the 5-6 spot for the last few weeks.
Yeah,
I think 8 is perfect for them, and I think they're probably going to stay around the 8 to 7 range from here on out.
Yeah.
And it's just because, they do, like, they've lost to Tampa Bay, they lost to Baltimore, a healthy Tampa Bay, might I add.
Yep.
And then they lost to Pittsburgh. They only lost by 1 point? Yep, right?
They lost 27-28.
Yeah, they lost by 1 point to Pitt, and they lost by 1 possession to Baltimore. They're playing all these tough teams close still. So they're not frauds. I'm fine with them continuing to be in the top 10. They're probably going to stay there for the rest of the season, honestly.
I mean, I think they are exactly what we thought they were, to quote a once great coach. It's simple. They're an elite offense with a terrible defense, and a terrible defense is not going to be able to hold up against really good teams, and that's what's happening to them. They're able to stay in it because their offense is carrying them, but their defense just can't hold up their end of the bargain, and results in losses against good teams. And I think that's what they'll be until they start, the defense starts to improve. But
they play Philly twice still this year. Do you think they win one of those games or no?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure they'll win at least one. They could sweep Philly. I think Philly is a fraud, but we'll get there. All right. Pittsburgh jumps up just over the Commanders for obvious reasons. I mean, they just beat them. I mean, it's that simple. Kind of just the exact opposite team, a great defense with a iffy offense. And, right now, Russ has that offense humming. They're averaging over 30 points a game with Russell Wilson in his quarterback compared to, I believe, I have it in my notes here, 18.4 points per game with Fields leading the offense. In 3 games, they've scored 91 total points. In the 5 games with Fields, they scored 92 total points. So Russ is running that offense more efficiently, better, which because the offense is kind of his dream offense. You run the ball and take shots deep down the field with the moon ball style pass. It works great. It's exactly what Tomlin wants. So, I think their offense, if the offense can play at this level, I said this a couple weeks ago. I think that Russell Wilson can take this team and turn them into a Super Bowl contender because of how good the defense is. I think that he can propel that offense to that next level because we've seen him do it with Seattle when he was younger. And I think that this team is built in a similar way, not to that same level, but just in the shadow of it. And I think if he can sustain this level of play, Pittsburgh will only continue to rise.
I don't know if I'm ready to crown them as Super Bowl contenders quite yet. Who has Russ played? The Jets, Washington.
He has played. Sorry,
Did he play against the Giants too in that game?
No, here, I'm pulling it up right now. Give me 2 seconds. He played the Jets, the Giants, and the Commanders. Those are the 3 games he played in, respectively. He put up 37 on the Jets defense, 26 on the Giants defense, and 28 on the Commanders defense. So 2 of those 3. It's kind of like a good, a medium, and a bad, in my opinion. The Giants are kind of like a 15 to 20 defense. Jets are a 15 to 5 defense, and then the Commanders are a bottom 5 defense.
Okay. I mean, I'll give him the Jets game. I mean, he played good against the Jets. I really haven't been watching much of Pittsburgh since the Jets game. I've just been working weekends.
Yeah.
But the little bit I have seen of Russ, it seems like he's really loving the 50-50 ball.
Yeah, that's that moon ball I was just talking about, right? That's what Tomlin wants. He wants to use those receivers on the outside and throw up the 50-50 ball, and that's what Russ does real well.
I just do not like relying on it to win games. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's fair, but that's what they want to do to win games, is that they want to let their playmakers make plays. And that, I mean, I get not liking it, and it's kind of a sketchy thing, and I understand that. It's not as safe as, being able to just run the ball at will. I totally understand that, but that's what they want to do.
And that's fine. It has worked thus far. I'm just curious to see what happens against a playoff caliber defense, what that looks like. Can they still make those over?
In my opinion, they did it against the Jets, which they put up 37 on the Jets, and that's a playoff caliber defense for sure.
Yeah, I think the Jets defense is checked out.
Yeah, but they hadn't then. They have after this past week, I think they have for sure, but I don't think they had then. But, it was post Robert Saleh. It was, let's see here. Was
it the week after?
It was 2 weeks after Robert Saleh's firing. It was week 7, and Robert Saleh got fired after week 6, or after week 5. So week 6 and then week 7 is when they played.
Okay.
So a little bit later. But all right, let's move on to number 6 on our list, the Philadelphia Eagles. I am not as high on the Eagles as you guys are. I think they are a bit of a pretender. They have wins over the Browns, the Giants, the Bengals, which is a good win, but they have an atrocious defense. And the Jags, and we all know how the Cowboys are doing right now. They're on a 5-game win streak, but they've played those 5 teams, and none of those 5 teams scare me. The Bengals, you could say their offense scares you, but that's it. And their defense is atrocious. So I think that Philly's a product of a really good schedule, because when they played teams early in the season, like the Falcons and the healthy Buccaneers team, they lost.
Or the healthy Packers team.
Well, the Packers team, that one's a weird one for me, because that was in Brazil. It was, the field we've all heard about the field conditions, and it's just a weird one for me. It's like playing in London. I don't really take a lot of stock in it. Like, I don't. What's up?
I was going to say, or the Red Hot Saints week 3.
I mean,
they were hot coming in.
They were hot, but they've been exposed.
Philly shut them down.
Yeah, they've been exposed, and we realized that was just kind of a flash in the pan thing. It would be one thing if the Red Hot Saints had picked it back up and just took right back off, and Philly was the one team to shut them down. But that's not the case. So for me, I'm not as high on Philly as most people are. We'll see. They could be, they have tons of weapons, but I think their cornerbacks aren't as good as they've looked recently because of the subpar competition they went against. And I do feel like this offense is really, really good, but I don't feel like this defense is going to stand up against playoff caliber offenses very well. But that's just me. Anybody got anything else? Move on to 5?
Doing just fine.
I'm
pretty sure I had him in my top 5.
I
did. I had him at 5th.
Yep.
I think Philly is built a lot similarly to Baltimore as far as a struggling defense, very run heavy.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jalen Hurts is not Lamar Jackson, but they have
I mean,
Saquon Barkley aging back, better wide receivers.
technically they're the fifth ranked offense in the league right now, letting up 17.9 points per game. That ranks fifth. But like I said, they've played the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. They've played the Jags. They've played the Bengals, which is a good one on their record. That's a good one. But then they've played the Giants. They've played the Browns with Deshaun Watson.
Had to add that
the
caveat in there.
Yeah, the Bucks, who they lost to, the Saints, who were kind of been exposed since then. The Falcons, they lost to the Packers.
They beat the Saints week 3 though. They weren't exposed the first 2 weeks.
No, they exposed the Saints. Like they did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I agree. But like they've been exposed. Like they showed everybody like this isn't as good of an offense as they've looked. So I will say Philly was the first team to do it, but several teams have done it since as well. All right, the fifth team on the list, the Baltimore Ravens. I think Baltimore could have been higher on the list, could have been lower on the list. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think Baltimore should be higher. I think since who have their 2 losses been against? Kansas City and who else?
Let me look it up real quick.
Las Vegas.
Was it Las Vegas? Yeah, it was Las Vegas. It was Las Vegas and the Browns. So they've lost to the Browns, which was a weird division. That was Jameis Winston's first game. So you got the weird backup quarterback thing that happens every once in a while. The Raiders game was just a trap game. And then the Chiefs, the Chiefs just win. They're just winning. They're just winning. So, I think they've had some bad losses, but I also think they've had some good wins. So they're a very up and down thing. I think Lamar is kind of carrying the team right now with Derrick Henry. I think those two are really just carrying the whole load. Is anything else?
Yeah, I had them at 7.
Yeah.
Really?
I did. I had the Steelers and the Eagles above them because right now I personally think the Steelers' 2 losses were by a combined 6 points, and it was with Justin Fields as the starting quarterback. I think the Steelers team is completely different now. They're putting up tons of points
a game.
Yeah, 30 points a game now. And personally, I was going to say this when we were talking about the Steelers, but my hot take is I think the Steelers are going to beat the Ravens this week.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's totally a possibility. I think that it would be Steelers, Baltimore, and then the Eagles below them even. But
yeah, I had the Eagles above them too, just because the Eagles don't have a bad loss, don't have anywhere near a bad loss like Baltimore does.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, the number 4 team on the list, the Minnesota Vikings. I had them at 4 on my list. Me and Spoon had them higher than Riley did. Riley still got them. I think you had them at 7, Riley.
Yeah.
So I'll be completely honest with you. The Vikings defense is fucking out of this world right now. They made up for an absolutely just rough game on offense. Like we were as dominant on offense as you could possibly be. Like if you didn't watch the game, there's a DVOA chart out there that shows like how dominant your team was per play on offense, and the Vikings were second only to the Eagles, who won like 36-6. It was insane. We would just get into the red zone and a turnover would happen out of nowhere. And 2 of Sam's 3 picks were not his fault at all. The third one definitely was 100% his fault. It was just a bad ball, just an underthrown ball. But the second one, I'm not putting on him. And the first one, I'm definitely not putting on him. Yeah, they didn't score a touchdown. I didn't move them up because of that, but they were outside of a couple turnovers that shouldn't have happened due to no fault of the Vikings offense. They should not have happened. This was an absolutely dominant performance, but if you just looked at the score, you wouldn't see that. So if you look at the box score, it was like 412 total yards of offense to like 170. Like insane. The Vikings set a new franchise record for most time of possession in a game. Like, just they dominated everywhere but the scoreboard. So that's why I left him up there. But Riley, I know you're not as high on him.
No, and it's nothing against the Vikings. Like, I know they're a rival, but I just think the 3 teams below them have played better in recent weeks.
That's fair.
I can't remember, who did you guys play last week? Wasn't it close?
The Colts.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the Colts.
Yeah.
It was a close first half, but the second half was never close. The first half was kind of one of those like weird struggle bus halves where like the Colts scored first, and it was just weird. Like we didn't play well at all. Like for complete transparency, that game we did not play well in the first half, but the second half we fixed it totally fine. Like I never felt. We came out in the second half, and it felt like a different team. I never felt threatened by the Colts after the second half. So,
I mean, I'm going to be honest, looking at it, and I thought about it as well, Riley. Like, I know where you're coming from. And they play the Titans this week in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm already thinking, okay, if they have another close game against a bad team, they're probably going to end up falling. They're probably going to end up falling out of my top 5, more than likely. They need to, if they're in the top,
but
if they're in the top 5, they need to be beating these teams by a lot more.
It's not just the close games, because the 2 weeks before that were both losses. So you had a 2-game losing streak, and now you're playing all these bad teams close. It doesn't sit right with me for a top 5 team.
I mean, that's fair. I just don't think. I don't think that if you watched last week's game, it wasn't close. It was close on the scoreboard, but it was never like, oh, the Jags could win this game. It was always like, okay, when are they just going to score and put the Jags away? Like it was, it was never close.
How many points did you guys score? 12?
I think 12.
4 field goals.
And this is just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
The only 2 teams you would have beat last week were the Bears and the Jags. I mean, I think every other team. How many other teams scored less?
If they were playing our defense, though, they might not have scored 12 points. Our defense is playing out of their mind, dude. I'm not trying to be a homer, and it's coming off very homerish, and I understand that. But this defense, the Vikings defense, for the entire year is number 1 in DVOA, number 2 in EPA. They're the number 3 points per game defense. Like they're playing high-end ball across the board in all but 2 games, really. The Rams game you can count. I'm salty with the Rams game. Most of the Packers points came with garbage time points. Like they never had the ball with a chance to win the game. So I don't cool garbage points. And then the Detroit game obviously came down to the final possession. But a win's a win, and everything but the scoreboard. Like if I just showed you the raw box score stats, you'd be like, oh, the Vikings won 40-2. Like it wasn't even close. But we just there was an interception that clearly should not have been an interception. There was another interception where Justin Jefferson had defensive pass interference before the ball was even thrown, and the dude tackled him, and then it hit JJ in the chest as he's being tackled, and the ball went up in the air, and they caught it on the tip. So those weren't they were no calls that should have been called differently. Lots of excuses I could make. We'll move on to the number 3 team on the list, the Buffalo Bills, which is the Bills are another team where I see you guys are saying, the Vikings have had some close wins. And I mean, the Bills barely beat the Jets. They did blow out the Titans. They did blow out the Hawks, but then they barely beat the Dolphins. So you have some good losses or good wins. You have some bad wins. I don't know if I could put any other team above them other than the 2 that are, for obvious reasons, and that's why I had them at 3. I think we all 3 had them at 3, right?
I had them at 3.
Yeah, I thought so. I think they're the consensus 3rd best team in the NFL. I think you know exactly what you're getting. You're getting a top-end defense. I think they're top 5 in defense. They may not be anymore. No, they're ninth in defense, 3rd in offense. They're playing really good. Josh Allen is Josh Allening. Like, I don't know.
I don't really hate on them for barely beating Miami 2 weeks ago, and that's because obviously Tua came back. I don't hate it, but their 2 losses are to 2 really good teams, Baltimore and Houston. Yeah. Houston was not as banged up at the time.
No, Houston was as banged up. They didn't have Nico Collins or Stephon Diggs.
October 6th, over a month ago.
Yeah, didn't the Diggs get?
I'm pretty sure Diggs
the week
was
before
still
that.
There.
Was he? I mean,
I'll have to look at it.
Take 2 seconds. Hold on.
But that's my only counter to the close wins and stuff like that would be I think Buffalo is at a roster disadvantage in most of their games.
That was the game Diggs got hurt. Sorry, that was the game Diggs got hurt. So he played through the third quarter. So
okay. That's fair.
So he wasn't in the end of the game, but he was in the majority of the game. So
which makes sense. That's probably why they put up 14 points in the first quarter.
Yep.
And then never scored a touchdown again, and it definitely helped Buffalo come back.
So I don't know. I like Buffalo at 3. They have some close games, but I feel like they've been pretty dominant at times.
Nico Collins played that game too, by the way.
He did? I thought he'd been on IR after the Ravens game.
2 receptions, 78 yards, and a touchdown. That's why I was saying I thought that was too long ago.
Never mind. I'm all over the place. Sorry about that. I think they have some really good statement wins, such as the Titans game 34-10, the Seahawks 31-10, against the Dolphins in Miami 31-10. They have some good statement wins, but they also have some cringy wins. So, hey, it's really neither here nor there. I'm not mad about it. I like them at 3. And the number 2 team, the Detroit Lions. We were all kind of all over the place with this. Everybody had them in a different spot. I actually dropped them. I think I actually had Buffalo at 2. Let me double check this real quick. I did. I actually had Buffalo at 2. I lied. I dropped Detroit because you don't get to throw 5 interceptions at a game and stay in the same spot when a team wins. I get it. Like I had him at 1 the previous 3 weeks. Spoon, you moved him up to 1, right?
Yeah, I moved him up to 1.
I didn't like that after scraping by a bad team. I didn't like that, but hey, that's me. Riley, you kept him at 2, right?
Yeah, I didn't really.
That's fair. I could see leaving him.
If the Chiefs would have lost, I probably would have moved them up.
Yeah, same. Same.
I don't. If it was 5 interceptions and they lost, they're going way down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's my thing with it. They played a decent second half, especially defensively, which I've given them a lot of flack for over the years of being really bad on defense under Dan Campbell. And they did give up 23 points in the first half, but then they shut them out in the second half. So that's really good. Credit where credit's due type situation.
Yeah, see, and that was my thing. Like they went into halftime down 23-7 with all the interceptions that Jared Goff had, and their defense stepped up. The offense started clicking a little more, and then they found a way to win.
Yeah, they found a way to win.
The ball over way too many times.
But my thing with it is we've given the Chiefs a lot of shit for finding a way to win and winning scrappy, close games against bad teams or whatever. The Texans are a bad team right now. They've lost 3 of their last 4 of their last 5. As banged up as they are, they're a bad team right now, and Detroit scraped by them.
My counter to that would be they're still dangerous. Like Cincinnati, for example.
Yeah, but Texans don't have anybody to be dangerous with. Like the most dangerous thing they have is their run game right now.
And that's it. CJ Stroud.
Who's he going to throw to?
He still has a few people. He has Tank Dell. He's got Dalton Schultz. They're not terrible.
No. Tank Dell is your number 1.
I would love to have Tank Dell in Buffalo, or not Buffalo, in Tampa Bay right now.
Yeah, it's like your wide receiver 2 or 3. Yeah, it'd be great, but not as your wide receiver 1.
Would Tank Dell not be the number?
He would be the number 1 in Tampa Bay.
In Buffalo?
He probably would. Nah.
No.
Put him over Keon.
I don't put him over. I don't know. I don't put him over Khalil, and I don't put him over Amari Cooper.
Are you a fan of Khalil Shakir now?
Dude's balling out. Look at the stats. Dude's balling out. He's proven.
No, I'm just Because I was
Yeah,
big
no.
on Shakir
Yeah.
coming into this. I was big on Buffalo coming into
I wasn't,
this
and I've been proven wrong. I'm more than willing to admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong about it. They've played
Okay.
really well. The dude is balled out. He's been a consistent weapon weekly who's shown that he can play ball. And
I do think it's funny how the last 2 weeks Jared Goff has been walking on water, and then he goes out and throws 5 interceptions in a game.
yeah, I don't know. I moved them down because of the fact that they look so bad against a bad team. They did find a way to win, which is important. You know, it's important for good teams to be able to like for the Vikings, for example, right? The first half with the refs didn't go our way. Lots of bad turnovers that shouldn't have been turnover. We found a way to win. I give them credit. Same for Buffalo against Miami. Same for the Lions against Houston. There's some credit there, but I feel like Buffalo and Kansas City were playing better this week than Detroit was, and for that reason, I had them over. Because Kansas City was playing the number 3 defense, that for me was a lot more took a lot more weight than playing Houston. So Kansas City should have lost. You could argue Detroit probably should have lost if it wasn't for a weird shanked long field goal. Like that was like he was like 91% from beyond 50 yards and he shanked that hard. Like it was never close. And then Bates squeezes his in by literally that much. So I'm not trying to discredit the win by any means, but it's just a close game. But with that being said, Kansas City at 1. They're the best team. They're the best team right now, record wise. Not point differential wise, but they're finding ways to win. You can't discredit them too much. Yes, they probably should have lost the game, but they didn't lose the game. So it's not they don't ask how, they ask how many. And right now it's 0 in the loss column. So that's what matters. Anything you guys want to add before we get off here?
Wow, you said point differential, and I was honestly curious about that. Holy crap!
Buffalo's leading the league by a mile in point differential
Detroit's
right now.
leading the league.
Oh, I thought it was Buffalo. Is it Detroit?
Detroit has almost double the point differential.
I had him backwards. Sorry, yeah.
And I obviously,
That's
with me being me, I'm gonna put a lot of the offensive shortcomings on Matt Nagy, and part of me wishes that they would like demote him or fire him, just because then it would be Shane Waldron, Luke Getsy, and Matt Nagy all getting fired in the same week.
All right. Well, do you guys got anything to add before we hop off here? Anything else?
No, I think it was a good list.
All right. Well,
cool with it.
make sure to tune in next week. We'll be back with the same exact thing. Until then, we'll see you next time.
See you.